Line. Brought to you by Helene Curtis, makers of Stop-F deodorants, flowing cream, spray, and stick, Suave hairdressing, and End and Dandruff Treatment shampoo. Now let's all play What's My Line?
And now let's meet our award-winning What's My Line panel. First, the delightful star of stage and television, Miss Arlene Francis.
And now a gentleman who is a decided asset to this panel, as he is to any show on which he appears, Mr. Ernie Kovacs. It's you.
And on my left, the lady who can testify to the fact that I've had Caesar salad tonight, garnished liberally with garlic. Dorothy Kilgallen.
I really hadn't noticed, Ernie, really.
Thank you.
And on my left, another great asset to this program, our publisher panelist, Bennett, Cerf.
Sitting over there all by himself, our superb panel moderator, on with his usual overabundance of polysyllabic words, Mr. John Charles Daly.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's My Line. Once again tonight, some interesting occupations. What is perhaps more important, brought here by some very nice people. The nice people and I hope we'll give the panel a lot of trouble. We'll also have a famous mystery challenger before the panel a little bit later in the show, and we'll meet our first challenger in just 1 minute. And now let's meet our first contestant. Will you enter the premises and sign in, please? Everett Hamilton. From, Mr. Hamilton?
Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. Well, I must say it's nice to have somebody from the Northwest. We haven't had anybody visit us from that area for a long time. The panel, Mr. Hamilton. And now, sir, will you join me over here? Are you familiar with the way we keep score?
Yes, I am.
All right, then let's let everybody in the theater, except the panel and our friends and your friends outside the theater, know exactly what your line is. Mr. Hamilton is self-employed, and let's begin the general questioning with Arlene Francis.
Mr. Hamilton, do people watch you perform whatever your job is?
Yes.
Do you entertain them in any way in what you do?
No.
1 down and 9 to go, Mr. Kovacs.
You didn't write The King and I, did you?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Just as well.
That's been my trouble for weeks, Mr. Hamilton. Do you have anything to do with women?
Some.
Pardon?
Yes.
Some. That makes us even. I didn't hear you that time. Do you have anything to do with groups of women as opposed to an individual?
We have a small conference.
Yes. Shall we? Where did you eat tonight, Dorothy?
Yes.
Yes, I think we can safely say that Mr. Hamilton has to do with groups of women as distinguished from an individual woman.
Does what you do bring you in contact with these women?
Yes.
It could, yes.
Quite a boy, you know? Does this have anything to do with affecting their appearance?
What he...
Such as in costume or makeup, in clothing or in their makeup?
No.
No. 2 down and 8 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Could Arlene or I avail ourselves of your services?
Yes.
Would we be better off or happier after we had?
I hope so. Perhaps so.
That is probably the answer. It would be a purely subjective decision on your parts as to whether you were happier after having received the service.
Well, would our intent be to be happier or better off if we engaged his services?
I would say that if the circumstances were such that you sought Mr. Hamilton's services, it's safe to presume that you would be happier for having had those services than you were before you got them.
I'll buy that.
Would it be likely that in order to desire Mr. Hamilton's services, we would have to be in some particular state of life or condition or position?
Give us an example of what you have in mind.
I can't. Well, I mean, not everybody would use his particular service. Is that right?
That's true. Not everybody would.
Could men ever use his services?
Yes.
But they, too, would have to have some special reason for needing them.
Well, they would consider their reasons for needing them as special ones, yes.
Do people voluntarily get involved with Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Would children ever become involved with you?
Yes.
No, wait, small conference. No, I think we have to give you a no answer
Yes,
there. That's
no.
3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. Hamilton, do you work alongside of other people who are involved in the work that you are doing, too?
Yes.
Do you require any special training for the kind of work that you do?
Yes.
Yes, this takes it out of the usual term of reference of a degree of any kind, actually, but you do need
You
to
have
have some
special
special
training.
skills to perform in the area in which Mr. Hamilton excels.
Do you do your work between Mount Hood and the Pacific Ocean?
Yes.
Do you do it in Portland?
Yes.
Would you be able to do the same work in any other big city in the United States?
Yes.
Do you wear any kind of a uniform in the work that you wear? That is, a costume other than the very neat blue serge suit you're wearing tonight?
No.
Small conference. I would say this, Bennett, that with Mr. Hamilton's permission, we'll give you a qualified yes on that one. It's true that Mr. Hamilton might not always necessarily go to a costume of some kind, but on the other hand, he might.
Would that costume be a protective garment of some sort, Mr. Hamilton, if you wore it, to protect
Yes.
you? Then do you do some kind of work that might splatter you with either mud or blood or something of that sort?
Well, I think that we would have to say there that it is not the purpose of the garment which he wears to protect him from being splattered by mud or blood. And we'll give you a no answer. 4 down and 6 to go, Miss Francis.
Does what you do for these other people require them also to have a certain dexterity after a while?
Yes.
Do you do your work at all out of doors?
No.
5 down and 5 to go, Mr. Kovacs.
This has all the earmarks of the gentleman who says, I'll wrestle anybody in the house. You're not a wrestler?
No.
Yes, he is not a wrestler, no.
Yes.
Go ahead. Mr.
One
Kovacs.
quick little bitty question here before we go on, may I? By golly, I've got it. Do you have a product concerned with this?
No.
No,
Nothing,
that
huh?
makes it 6 down and 4 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
I could smack my face.
Do you do any rapid footwork in what you do?
7 down and 3 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. Hamilton, does what you do require a certain amount of strength?
No.
8 down and 2 to go, Miss Francis.
Would what you do be considered in any way a game?
No.
9 down and 1 to go, Mr. Kovacs.
Is what you do legal? It is.
Yes.
Well, I got a yes anyway.
Yeah.
Didn't do me a heck of a lot of good, though, did it? Have you done, could you do this right now, right here, with this group?
If you had a gun.
Well, actually, to the degree that you can do anything if you
I
wish
see.
to violate the
One
rules
of
or
those
break
answers.
precedent or establish new traditions,
Yes,
but it
naturally.
would be
Of course.
unlikely.
Yes,
So
yes.
we'll give you a
see.
no answer
Yes,
on it.
Yes, yes, John, yes.
And tell you that Mr. Hamilton runs a school for barbers. Mr. Hamilton is the owner.
Mr. Hamilton Hamilton to practice on too long.
He is the owner and the teacher at, the Mola Barber College in Portland. 6 months course, then you have to take a state examination.
Yule Hamilton's Barber School.
And actually, all of this happened because he worries so much about his graduates passing their exams. But
how many little shavers have you got now?
that'll be all, Mr. Cerf. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamilton. It's wonderful to stick the panel. Nice to have had you as a guest in What's My Line. Another challenger can do to the panel. Would you enter the premises and sign in, please? Mrs. Von Don Francis. Is that right? Where are you from, Mrs. Francis?
Roxborough, North Carolina.
Roxborough, North Carolina. Fine. Mrs. Francis, the panel. And now will you join me over here? Are you familiar with the way we keep score?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Then I'll get her back here to 0, and we'll let everybody at home and the people who are here with us know exactly what your line is. All right, panel. Mrs. Francis is self-employed, and let's begin the general questioning with Ernie Kovacs.
A very wise move, John. Do you deal in products, Miss Francis?
Yes.
Is this a product with which I might be familiar?
You might what, Ernie?
I might be familiar? With which I might be familiar?
Yes.
I've been meaning to ask this every week, and I never have had the chance. Is this something you can fold?
Sometimes.
Yes.
The last time we had cows, I was going to ask that, and I was just...
I would say this, that if you wanted to hold this, you could.
Fold.
Oh, if you could fold it.
Fold it.
Well, that makes it 1 down and
I
9 to
see.
go. Miss Kilgallen.
But Mrs. Francis said yes.
No, but we
fold.
changed it to no on
Oh.
fold. We thought he said hold.
Well, then you can hold it in your hand sometimes? Sometimes.
Wait a minute, you phrase that hold it in your hand, that would make it 2 down and 8 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Oh. Where does that leave us?
Where would you hold it?
Yes.
You hold it in your hand.
You would not hold it in your hand, that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
But you could hold it.
Mm-hmm.
It takes 2 to tango.
Mrs. Francis, has the product with which you are connected ever been or is it now alive?
Yes.
Is it some kind of an animal?
Yes.
And would you hold it then more or less with your knees or your feet, possibly?
I would say this, Bennett, it's a
Not
line
your
of questioning
teeth,
that won't
God
help
help.
you. It would be possible to hold it with your knees or your feet. I mean, it would depend on how badly you wanted to hold it, as a matter of fact.
Is this what we would normally call, Mrs. Francis, a domesticated animal?
Yes.
Is it a full-legged creature?
Yes.
It is. Could anybody ever ride this creature?
Ride it?
Yes.
No. 3 down and 7 to go, Miss Francis.
What I meant by that, Bennett, was that you could hold it with 2 hands, even if you couldn't hold it with 1 hand. That's why I said that. I threw you off with the feet there. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you explained it.
Well, I knew you'd never get it.
I don't remember hearing a call for a conference, Miss.
I'm terribly sorry.
It's
Excuse
perfectly
me,
all right,
sir.
yes,
Mr.
yes,
Daly,
yes.
sir. You say it's a domestic animal. Could it be found on a farm?
Yes.
Is it an animal that you would prefer not to have in the house?
Yes.
Yes.
Some people.
Is it an animal larger than a dog? Now, don't ask me what size dog I have in mind, John. I know you were going to. Larger than, let's say, a bulldog or some such. Is it larger than that?
Sometime.
Uh-huh. Is it an animal that we eat?
No.
Well, now, wait a minute. I think here, if Mrs. Francis will excuse me, it is an animal of the general designation that is edible and is eaten, yes.
Does it have fur?
No.
4 down and 6 to go. I'm going to give you 1 more minute. Mr. Kovacs?
Does it have skin? I have a feeling we're going to be introduced to a new species in this program. Is this a pet?
Some people have them for pets.
They haven't been getting along together all evening, the two of them.
I quit. Mrs. Francis holds, and I think properly on reconsideration, that this animal is an animal which, if you so chose, could be a pet, yes.
Does this animal give off an odor? And you folks at home will excuse me.
No.
No, it doesn't.
Well, here again, we're in a very difficult area.
Yes, of course.
Mrs. Francis very properly takes great pride in her own, and I'm sure in this case we can safely say that it does not, the species, give off an odor. However, we would have to grant to you that there are others of the species that do.
Does Miss Francis bring this about, this condition of the Chanel atmosphere?
Well, I would say that Mrs. Francis' ministrations certainly have had a great deal to do with the lack of odor.
May I cast discretion to the winds, John?
Yes.
Do you deodorize skunks?
No. No, and the minute is much more than up, and I'm going to flip all the cards and throw them in. That's the towel in. Mrs. Francis raises pigs, a very...
Well, that's what I thought of, John, but you didn't give me an honest answer there.
Because when I said, I really was thinking of pigs, and that's why I said, is it an animal that we eat? And then there was some sort of discussion like we don't eat them as a rule, but we...
Not Mrs. Francis raises special breed pigs which are meant to improve the general run of stock, and that's why I was careful to say...
You went pretty far.
No, I didn't.
Come on,
I said
John.
that Mrs. Francis didn't get et, but that the species was edible and was eaten, you know?
Well, it's one Francis to another. Pigs is pigs.
That, I think, actually, to clear the picture entirely, Mrs. Francis breeds registered Hampshire hogs. And now we'll meet tonight's mystery guest in just... And now we come to the special feature of our program, the appearance of our mystery celebrity, for which I ask my friends on the panel to blindfold themselves. And they have so done. Are the blindfolds all in place, panel?
Yes, sir.
Good. Will you come in, mystery challenger, and sign in, please? Mystery challenger, we go to a different form of questioning. You will ask one question at a time, in turn moving clockwise, and we'll begin with Dorothy Kilgallen.
Are you in the movies?
Yes.
Mr. Cerf?
Are you liberally sprinkled with stardust in the movies?
I don't understand you.
Are you a star? Does your name go up in lights over the marquee when a picture that you're in is playing?
Sometimes.
Miss Francis, I think the answer to that is yes. Miss Francis?
Are you here for the opening of a picture?
No.
1 down and 9 to go, Mr. Kovacs.
Are you carnivorous?
No.
Just a moment.
Are you blonde?
I think they're whispering again, Dorothy.
I mean at the moment, of course.
Beg pardon?
I mean now, to the naked eye.
What, carnivorous?
Animals.
No, blonde.
I'm sorry, Miss Kilgallen. Will you repeat your question?
Is our guest at the moment blonde?
No.
No. 2 down, 8 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Have you ever decorated the legitimate stage as well as motion pictures?
Yes, Miss Francis?
Do you do anything besides act? I mean, do you sing?
No.
3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Kovacs.
I'm going to take a guess. You're not Howard L. Kosnowski, are you? One day, Howard's going to show up on this program, and I've got him. Did you do, as opposed to another kind, let's say, musical pictures?
No.
That makes it 4 down and 6 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Are you primarily a dramatic actress, then?
Yes.
Mr. Cerf?
Are you at present, or have you been within the last 2 years in a show on Broadway?
No.
5 down and 5 to go, Miss Francis.
Do you appear in television?
Sometimes.
Mr. Kovacs?
Did you, at any time, did you, Arlene, no, did you at any time do a very, I guess it would be called a mystery, a very famous mystery picture? It was not the Charlie Chan bit,
Yes,
but I mean,
yes.
you did?
Yes.
Yes?
Miss Kilgallen?
Thank you, Ernie, for the hint, but I don't get it. Was this, was it a picture that became a series of pictures?
No.
6 down and 4 to go, Mr. Cerf.
I don't recognize the hint that Ernie made, so I'm going to have to go back. Were you on the stage within the last 6 years?
No.
No?
7 down and 3 to go, Miss Francis.
I wish Ernie hadn't said that. All I can think of is Myrna Loy.
I've thought of her at times.
I'm going to pass to Ernie. Maybe he knows what it
Did
is.
you do a picture?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Arlene, did you pass
I
on?
passed because I can only think of Myrna Loy at this moment. She's going back and forth in front of my eyes.
You too?
Mr. Kovacs?
Did you do a picture, the title of which became and was at that time a great song and became a very famous song?
Yes.
Yes.
Please.
That's
no
a hint,
hint.
John.
No,
She's
nothing.
just given a hint, this girl on my right.
That's right, Miss Kilgallen.
Are you Jean Tierney?
Jean Tierney's right.
Hasn't Arlene a lovely voice? I never knew this. Take off your glasses. Let's see if you're beautiful.
Now, actually, Miss Jean, we had things pretty well primed tonight. They were absolutely sure from beforehand that we would have somebody here from the picture that's opening this coming week in New York, you see, which is why I was very pleased you were here. We came very close to sticking them, as you can see. It's 7 down and 3 to go. Given 1 or 2 more Kovacs brainstorms.
Brilliant.
Mr.
Good
Tierney,
one.
the play was the male animal, wasn't
Yes, that's
it?
right.
You haven't been here since then.
No.
Golly, that's a long time.
Now, Bennett, let's see how much of a theater goer you are. How long ago was the mail animal?
That must be about, I think it was right after the Sacco Vanzetti case. It was about... all about that. There was some speech of Sacco Vanzetti in that play,
Yes,
wasn't there?
that's right.
Jean was a bobby
The college,
soxer.
you were a kid.
What?
You were a bobby soxer, weren't
That's
you?
right.
Elliot
It
Nugent
Must be
was that.
15 years, is it?
Oh,
14?
easily. It's 39.
Another one of those unhappy cases where we lost a very fine actress to Hollywood and we didn't get her back soon enough. But we got her back in New York now, and thanks very
Thank
much for
you.
being with us. Well, panel, I think that we had a lot of fun tonight, and I'm glad because you have a cheering section here that you didn't know about. 50 teenagers representing youth organizations from all over the country are with us in the audience. They are here for a conference sponsored by the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, and their job is to discuss problems, actually the problem of getting people in their communities to be vaccinated against polio. So you might think that this is coming up and do what you can to help them do the job. It's an important one. And now, until next week, this is John Daly saying good night, Arlene.
Now, about pigs, John.
Pigs?
Good night, Ernie.
Good night, Arlene. Good night, Dorothy.
I really love garlic, Ernie. Good night, Bennett.
What can you do?
I don't want to talk about pigs. I'm just a poor book publisher, but I want to say Jean Tierney's the most beautiful girl we've had on this program in a long,
Tis
long
so.
time.
Tis so.
Good night, John.
Indeed. And with that very happy thought from Bennett Cerf, I would say thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us on What's My Line?
Transportation for What's My Line was arranged by American Airlines. Guests are flown to New York aboard America's famous luxury flight, the DC-7 Mercury. This has been a Mark Goodson, Bill Todman production in association with the CBS Television Network. Gene Tierney appeared through the courtesy of 20th Century Fox, producers of Darryl F. Zanuck, The Sun Also Rises, starring Ava Gardner, Tyrone Power, Errol Flynn, and Mel Ferrer.